I caught the common cold, and after about 2 weeks I couldn't really move my arms and legs. My skin was turning purple. My chance of survival dwindled to less than 3%.
This is Alex Lewis.
You just can't get your head around it when someone says we're going to have to amputate your limbs.
He lost all 4 limbs and part of his face.
And I remember thinking then, where do we go from here? I couldn't see a future.
But he didn't just survive. He turned a deadly virus into rocket fuel.
Falling ill gave me a second chance. There's a blank canvas to start again.
From kayaking Greenland's icy edge to scooter crossing Namibia's dunes.
We decided we would do mountain, desert, sea, snow and ice and air.
And designing game-changing prosthetics.
The unis could enable me to do anything I could dream of.
This is what Unbreakable looks like. Alex, welcome to Share.
Thank you very much.
So much
Thank
for
you
your
for having
time.
me.
You have quite an extraordinary story. It's the story of resilience, and I admire you, honestly. 2013, you contracted strep A, right?
Yeah.
Can you just walk me through what your life was like before 2013?
So before 2013, I was a builder / decorator. Met Lucy, my other half, when she was running a pub near to where I lived. We fell in love. And then I got out of the building industry and then started running a pub with her. We had our son in 2010, Sam. That was great. And I was a stay-at-home dad for the first 2.5 years of his life, which was just the best thing we've ever done by a mile. And then in 2013, when I caught the common cold. And after about 2 weeks, it got to very severe flu-like symptoms. I was nothing like I'd ever experienced before in my life until the 17th of November when I woke up and couldn't really move my arms and legs. My skin was turning purple, so I couldn't put my clothes on, couldn't function, didn't really have a good idea of where I was. Lucy called the paramedics straight away. They came in immediately. One of them said, "We need to get Alex to ICU immediately. We think he's got about 15 to 20 minutes before he dies." I do remember doctors in blue scrubs leaning over me, asking those questions. And I couldn't answer the questions. I think Lucy was trying to answer them on my behalf. The doctor that was looking after me said, right, we're going to treat him for Barre's disease, which is rat's urine in watercourses. Luckily for me, there was a changeover in consultant. A new consultant came in and he said, no, I've seen this once before. This is strep A. We need to get Alex into intensive care and put him on life support. The next 3.5 days, I was blissfully unaware as to what was going on. My chance of survival dwindled. I think that goes in 3. So I went from sort of like 60% to less than 3%. And then we got to 1%. I was on vasopressin. So I was on the way out, basically. And there was a study as to how to not treat strep, but stop it in its tracks to give you enough time to figure out how to treat it. And all it was a huge amount of steroid, enough to knock out a horse. But it just stemmed it enough. And luckily for me, it stopped the strep and the sepsis getting above my waistline into my internal organs.
When you woke up, do you remember much?
I remember seeing a huge amount of machinery and wires everywhere and people that I didn't recognise. I had no real clue as to what had gone on. And that's when I met another one of my greatest friends, Alex Crick, the plastic surgeon, who came into my room in Salisbury and then just delivered the bombshell that I was going to lose my left arm, possibly lose my knee joints, but they tried to save them but couldn't. They were going to rebuild my right arm, which they did initially, but I was to break that 6 months after the surgery, hence that arm being amputated. And then she did talk to me about rebuilding part of my face with my right rib cage and rebuilding my right arm with my left shoulder. You just can't get your head around it when someone says we're going to have to amputate your limbs. The trauma psychologist said, look, it's quite simple really. For you to get through the next 5 or 6 months of your life, amputations are necessary to keep you alive, and we need to start today. We can't waste any more time. It was only about 2 or 3 hours until I was sedated, and then the following day she amputated my left arm above the elbow, and that was the beginning of my amputations.
Your journey.
My mum was in a state, Lucy was confused, Chris was angry, really angry, my best friend. My stepdad didn't know what to say, my dad was the same. What they went through I've always said that it outweighs what I went through because I was the one being looked after, but they weren't. They were just seeing me every day with something else missing, another bandage around what used to be a left arm or a left leg.
You know, the fact that you say what Lucy, your dad and your stepdad were going through was, you know, worse than what you were going through. That takes a lot of empathy, and it's amazing the way you look at things.
My mum never got over it, I don't think. My father never got to grips with it in the end, and he died through lockdown.
Sorry.
My stepfather really struggled, but the one being that struggled the most was my Labrador. My poor Labrador just could not get her head around the fact that when I returned home, I was half the man I used to be. You know, I couldn't ruffle her hair, her ears or her fur, but that dog just never got over it. And that was really heartbreaking for me. Yeah, that was sad. When I was in ICU in Salisbury, when I think it was Christmas Eve, I said to Lucy, look, I missed my son terribly, can you bring Sam in? I remember Christmas Day coming around and I'm so excited to see my little boy. This is like all my Christmases come at once. And as I remember looking through the porthole glass at the end of the unit and I could see Lucy's face. And I was right at the other end. And when I saw her face, I was like, oh, it's going to be great. It's going to be so cool. And then as she opened the doors, in toddled Sam, who was about 2 3/4 at the time. He was sort of wandering around. And I couldn't move, but I remember trying my best to catch his eye. And when Lucy pointed at me and then his eyes met mine, he hid behind her legs. And I thought, okay, fair enough. But actually, he just didn't want to go anywhere near me. He could not understand what he was looking at. It wasn't Daddy. I didn't look anything like Daddy. And that was heartbreaking for me, heartbreaking for Lucy. And what Sam must have thought, I don't know. And I remember saying to Lucy, take him away because he doesn't want to be here. He's really upset by it all. And she took him out. And I remember thinking then, what's it all about? Where do we go from here? I couldn't see a future. And I remember one of the nurses coming over, she just started her evening shift. And she came over and she goes, you okay? And I said, no, I'm not. And I just couldn't stop crying. I couldn't get over it. So she went away, and unbeknownst to me, she calls Lucy and said, look, Lucy, I've just spoken to Alex. And Alex, I've never seen him depressed. He is absolutely depressed. And she said, is there anything that Alex loves as much as Sam? And Lucy went, well, the only thing he loves as much as his son is his dog. So that night, I see Lucy through the glass. And as she opened the double doors, in ran my Labrador. So my Labrador, Holly, was going around the beds and all the different people and all the nurses and all the consultants. And it was just this unbridled joy that was kind of lacking in a unit after a Christmas day like that. And then from that point on, it was all about getting Sam to reconnect, or me reconnect with Sam. It was all about going through the rehab, all about accepting the surgeries. I opened my room up to anybody that would come in because I needed them to bring the outside world into my room. And it made the difference, I think. So that nurse has a huge part to play in our story.
Do you reckon that your injuries have resulted in you seeing the good in the world more?
Definitely. The Alex before illness was self-centered. I didn't really know who or what I wanted to be or what I wanted to do. I wasn't happy in my life with Lucy. I wasn't being a good enough partner to her. I wasn't being a good enough father to my son, and I think falling ill gave me a second chance on all of it. It was a blank canvas to start again. So I was very lucky that I did fall ill, and I did get to experience ICU in Winchester and ICU in Salisbury, and then onto the ward in Aberystwyth, and meet the people that ultimately got me through it. It wasn't just the surgeons, it was the healthcare assistants that would feed you crisps or Wotsits, because obviously no arms couldn't eat independently, couldn't drink independently, couldn't go to the loo independently. Everything was done for you. So those guys were phenomenal. I was so fortunate. But when it came to me going home, I had no prosthetics at that point, no wheelchairs. I didn't really know what post-injury looked like at that point. And then all of a sudden I'm told I'm going home. And I said, well, I can't go home. I can't do anything on my own. And the last thing I wanted to be at that point was a burden to Lucy and Sam. So I was angry about all of a sudden, and scared, hellishly scared, about being almost booted out of the unit. So my best mate, Chris, he flew in from France when he knew what was going on. When it came to me leaving, he said, you seem a bit down, what's the matter? And I said, well, I'm leaving the unit and I'm going to go home and I have no idea how I'm going to cope. I can't do any of that independently. And, I don't want Lucy and Sam to feel that it's their duty to carry that out for me. And he said, you're not going to be a burden to your family. I've given up my job in France and I'm going to move in with you. I said, what do you mean you're giving up your job? He said, yeah, but you can't go home like that, can you? Someone's got to look after you. And so he moved in with Lucy and I and Sam for about 7 months, I think.
Wow.
So 6-7 months with Chris. And he was the ultimate best mate, the ultimate godfather to my son. Fantastic friend to Luce. He was the driver, the picked Sam up from preschool, drove me to appointments, up into rehab, back out of rehab. He was just a star.
Unbelievable. So he, obviously Lucy, your dog Sam, all of these people were the reason for you to keep going.
Yeah, definitely.
And you did start rehab, and I watched some of your videos and I was absolutely fascinated by how resilient you were. All the falls that you had, they wouldn't stop you from trying again. Yeah. I saw you trying for the first time to use your prosthetic to, use fine motor skills and pick things up. I'm sure it was very frustrating for you to lose that knife, 200 times probably. But you kept going, Alex. You look at it all in a positive manner, but it's not, I don't think everybody would have dealt with it the way you dealt with it.
Because we had so much support. People would go and have dinner in our restaurant and leave a £500 tip and say, give it to Alex, because we know that rehab's going to be expensive and he's going to need equipment. So the generosity of the public, the general public and customers of ours was amazing. You had this a huge amount of support. Rehab, in my eyes, was about to receive the equipment that was going to enable me to become more independent, to be able to go home and do more around the home, and just be more inclusive. And I thought, that's a really exciting thing. Everyone should be really sort of pro that sort of thing. But the unit was sad and people were not coping, some of them not very well with their level of injury. And it made me realise actually we were so fortunate that we had a house that we could adapt, that I could move into in a wheelchair. Some of these guys are wheelchair bound and they were living in flats in the centre of London, no lift, or the lift was broke. So how do you get up to your flat? Well, you can't. So then you're being rehomed with the council. And it made me realise that I was in a very, very fortunate position. But the amount of money that we needed in equipment was ridiculous. I had to leave rehab because they were going to order me a pair of legs I was never going to use. And they knew that. But the system dictated that you have to order the legs because I had a so-called prescription that required legs and arms. I said, I'll take the arms because I can learn to use them. But the legs, at that point, I just had, I think, the first of 12 surgeries on my face. Now, we didn't know how many surgeries were going to happen on the face, but I had one bit of skin remaining that they could move on to create this skin flap. So the risk of falling was obviously incredibly high, which meant the risk of damaging this skin was huge. And if I was to damage this, there was no plan B. And I felt that actually wheelchairs were fine. I could self-propel a wheelchair independently. I'd be able to get around the house, be a bit more independent. So I said, look, don't order me the legs. They're not what I need. And the prosthetist said, I'm sorry, but it's the system. We have to order them. And I said, well, I'm not going to take them. How do I not receive these legs from you? How do I stop you ordering them from Germany? And he said, the only thing you can do is sign out and not come back. I think about a week later, just by chance, we were picked up by military charity. And those guys enabled me to go to America to fully understand the cost of the equipment, what you could get, what you couldn't get, what it was like in the US in comparison to the UK. But the life quote was still $4.5 million from 35 to 60.
$4.5 million?
Yeah. And I remember thinking, well, I haven't got that, so what do we do? And luckily the military were like, well, that's pretty tough to take. Why don't you do some stuff with us? And that was the introduction to skydiving and kayaking and hand cycling. And I think about a year after that was when I did my first school talk that got me into end-user-led research in universities. So it all kind of unfolded very neatly for me in quite an orderly time fashion, really.
So you have mentioned repeatedly that Sam was the main reason for you to keep pushing forward. I think he was your force, right? He made you stay strong. Now that he's grown up, I'm sure seeing his dad being so strong also has taught him a lot.
All we hear from school is that he's the most compassionate kid to everybody. Everybody loves him, teachers and students. He's just so balanced, I think, which is all, as a parent, that's all you want, isn't it?
Absolutely.
You know, and every day he's smiley, happy. Yeah, we lucked out with him, I think.
Then again, I think, you know, the atmosphere you created at home didn't turn it into a trauma for him. Had it been a trauma for you, you made a big deal out of it, then it would become a trauma for him.
I mean, he loved it because every few months there'd be new equipment for him to play with. There'd be a leg or an arm or, you know, a bionic hand.
It made it fun.
Yeah, it was cool.
There was a time you went to pick up Sam with Lucy and people were staring.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And I know that because my son has disabilities. How did that feel and how did you learn how to live with it?
I remember saying to Chris quite early on, I said, right, we've got to get out. We need to go to the Greyhound, the restaurant that we had, shopping centres, supermarkets, because the only way that people were going to get used to this was to be seen. So we never shied away from people staring. And we made an effort to invite people to talk to us about what happened. So it became quite good fun to go out and talk to the public and make sure that the kids understood what had gone on, rather than just stand there and stare.
You started to collaborate with King's College to design prosthetics.
We worked on projects in and around muscle whispering tech and then bionic hands, and it was Nate, one of the students that we worked with at Imperial, who sort of changed the game for us because he asked the question, you know, what do you need from a prosthetic? He'd already designed a prosthetic for me, which was terrible. But at the end of the project, he said, what do you need? And I said, well, that's the $1 million question. You know, I don't need a hand with 4 fingers and a thumb. I need something that's functional, affordable, comfortable, and cool. You know, you design something like that and you've got a real winning product. And now he has designed something like that, and it's koala, and he's selling those upper limbs all over the world. Once word got out, we were involved in Imperial. That led to getting involved with Southampton. They made the foiled hand cycle that we went out to Ethiopia in, and they made another hand cycle which we should have gone to Namibia in, but we couldn't ship it in time. So I think the Ethiopian hand cycle did 14 days on the Simien Mountains, ridden by me as a quad amputee and Emma Bet, an Ethiopian girl who was a double leg amputee. And she became the first disabled Ethiopian woman to climb their highest mountain. And then when we got involved with King's, at that point we were starting to realise that actually the unis could enable me to do anything I could dream of. So that's when we decided on the Wild Wheelchairs project that we would do something to encompass mountain, desert, sea, snow and ice, and air. So we'd done the mountain in Ethiopia and Southampton. We couldn't do the Namib Desert the way we had it planned with the hand cycle, but the mobility scooter stepped in. And the hand cycle, I think I rode around Salisbury Plain for 19 hours non-stop for a charity event. And then it became the sea. I remember hand cycling many years ago and being frustrated because once I attached to my cranks for the hand cycle, I cannot detach independently. So I'm stuck on the bike. If I was to roll into a ditch on my own, I would not be able to get off the bike and get out of that situation. So everything became really dangerous. And the same with kayaking. When we started doing that, I realised that I couldn't actually let go of the paddle because I'm fully attached to it. And we realised that when I fell in the Orange River and sunk to the bottom of the river like a stone. And I could not do anything to get myself up above the water level. Again, Chris stepped in and he dived in and got me out. But it made you think, this is ridiculous. How many amputees over the course of time with upper limb difference have all had the same problems? So when it came to do something in the sea, we had to make sure that I could be as independent as possible. So we worked with Nikki down at King's and at Bath as well. And we collaborated to create these quick release attachments. So I can detach from whatever I'm holding independently. So if I was to fall in the water, the life jacket would explode and then I'd be able to detach from the oar so I wouldn't be dragged or be pulled into any kind of predicament that would end up ultimately with me drowning. So the whole idea of the foundation and the work that we do is that we get into the universities, we get the brightest minds working on these solutions, and then we partner with them and we spin them out of the university. So we get these products into the marketplace. I think through Koala, which we worked on since Nate asked that question, we've been involved in it from the start. So I think we've provided about 5,500 upper limb prosthetics to Ukrainian service people, kids in the UK, countries like Uganda, Sierra Leone, Mexico, the US, Germany, Switzerland, Spain, and now we're looking to go through to Japan, Australia, Saudi Arabia. But it just highlights what you can do with the right people behind you and the right minds looking at the solutions to enable you to do it. And in my eyes, that starts with inspiring a 9-year-old at school once I've rowed the North Atlantic and they see me in this condition and they think to themselves, how on earth do you do that? And that's where you've got to captivate them then and turn them into these incredible engineers that in the future will make better solutions for anybody with a disability moving forward.
In case nobody has told you, you have touched everyone's life just like they touched your life. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
It was such a pleasure talking to you.
Was it worth hanging on this late?
Oh yes, totally. You're worth it.
No, thank you
it's
for
not that
inviting
late
me on.
actually, but no, honestly, such a pleasure.
Thank you.
So much.